In 5 years, I hope to have completed my bachelor's degree.
J'aimerais vraiment ça voyager le monde, découvrir qu'est-ce que j'aime.
J'espère que par ce temps-là, j'aurai trouvé un travail.
Je planifie d'aller dans la production de scène.
I have no idea where I'm going to be in 5 years.
J'aimerais faire de la science politique.
Une année en Inde.
Maybe engineer or sciences.
Still performing, I'm an actor.
In mathematics or computer science or singing.
For me, Canada is the best country in the world.
Canada is a very kind country is the word I would use.
Un pays qui est quand même très froid, donc on peut le dire.
We had a civil war back in Kenya when I was younger. This safe haven, whoa, free place.
Je pense qu'on est super chanceux d'être ici.
Une collection de toutes les différentes cultures. Ils se mélangent pas, mais ils s'assemblent et c'est ça qui produit la beauté du Canada.
Can't think of anywhere I'd rather be, actually.
Our biggest challenge is to clean up Mother Nature.
With like global warming, socio-economical politics, it doesn't look very bright. We don't hear a lot of good news for the future. We're hearing that like 2050, there's gonna be more plastic in the ocean than fish.
Pour nous autres, c'est vraiment la technologie.
That job might already have been taken over by something smarter, a computer.
Ma francophonie, moi, je tiens vraiment à cœur.
Les gens commencent à perdre le sens de la communication face à face.
Overfishing, populations of animals are just completely dying.
La technologie en médecine aussi est toujours en évolution, puis on sauve de plus en plus de vies, même s'il y a de plus en plus de maladies.
So then it comes up to us, you know, to change that future, to be innovative and to find solutions to these problems that have been caused. So on that front, I'm excited to see that happen. Hopefully it will happen.
In 5 years, I hope to have completed my bachelor's degree.
J'aimerais vraiment ça voyager le monde, découvrir qu'est-ce que j'aime.
J'espère que par ce temps-là, j'aurai trouvé un travail.
Je planifie d'aller dans la production de scène.
I have no idea where I'm going to be in 5 years.
J'aimerais faire de la science politique.
Une année en Inde.
Maybe engineer or sciences.
Still performing, I'm an actor.
In mathematics or computer science or singing.
For me, Canada is the best country in the world.
Canada is a very kind country is the word I would use.
Un pays qui est quand même très...
Right, yeah. Bonjour, good morning. Welcome to the Montreal Forum on Canada's place in the world.
Bienvenue au Forum Jeunesse de Montréal sur la place du Canada dans le monde.
Welcome to the Youth Forum of Montreal. I'm Gabrielle Marleau. I'm a youth ambassador for Experiences Canada 150&Me, and I'm honored to be invited to be your Master of Ceremonies at today's event.
I'm also a youth ambassador with Experiences Canada 150&Me, and I'm honored to be invited to be your MC at today's event.
Nous voudrions commencer en soulignant que les terres sur lesquelles
We'd like to begin by pointing out that the lands on which we are holding this event are on the traditional territory of the Kanakenya, the Mohawk Canadians, and this was for a long time a place of exchange among nations, indigenous nations.
Takes place on the traditional territory of the Gaagahaga people. The island called Montreal is known as Giogage in the language of the Mohawk people, and it has historically been a meeting place for other indigenous nations, including the Algonquin people. The Aguesas Nation spans a vast territory that crosses the borders of Quebec, Ontario, and the United States. During his 30 years as tenure as Grand Chief, Michael Mitchell led international trade and fishing rights negotiations and sought to reconcile divisive economic development challenges within his community. We are honored that former Grand Chief Mitchell of the Mohawk Council of Aguesasne has generously agreed to bring some words of welcome on behalf of his people. Welcome, Chief Mitchell.
Cego. Yung esa não há wani zarade, wadi do adatsk. Nega de Yohando, kari wadekwa, atskadação. Toka den marad. Ye chinumalo, ye chinistaha je hunjade. Chigane garuni. Chiagwilod. Ano negaya. Neto na daw haki. Nega ele ni gawalage. Dega ni degarahquare. Ujista no quasson. Tinore ne segwaya diso. To the Naktalaguani. Agrego, Scaniguna, Wadon Guaniguna. To the Wadden Horado, to the Yechtonge, Nezoanigun. In my language, which is Mohawk, I gave an executive version of a Mohawk greeting that sometimes takes over an hour for elders to say. Because when people gather, they acknowledge one another. And with that acknowledgement, they always have words before anything else happens. They give a greeting, and it starts with Mother Earth. And then the waters, and the medicines, and the tree life, the animals, the four winds, Grandmother Moon, our elder brother Sun, the stars, universe, beyond the heavens, they say, to the land of the Creator. And so every meeting, they clear their minds by making that acknowledgement. And they remove anything that may impede a positive way of acknowledging one another. And when they get done, they said, now our minds are clear. Our heart is good. There's no more hatred. And so now we can talk. So every living thing on earth is acknowledged because it has a contribution to our life cycle. And that's how we open our meetings, in our ceremonies, in our daily lives. And so when European people came, Hashalega is what this place is called. In the very early stages, Canada's development. It's not 150 years ago. I'm going way back to the beginning, when our peoples met. And at the beginning, they welcomed their visitors. So many centuries later, we welcome you again. And our message is one of peace. You are celebrating 150 years, and it has some meaning. We are celebrating thousands of years, and it has great meaning for us. Today, you are leading yourselves into an adult life. You are very concerned what happens to Mother Earth, because it's your generation that is going to be making very important decisions that will affect all of us. Some of you may be members of Parliament. Some of you may be lawyers in a few years' time. At any rate, I know all of you will play an important role in the development of Canada, and perhaps even in the development of the world. I wish you great success. I will welcome you to the land of the Mohawks, our traditional homeland. And we can say that because the whole Iroquois nation that I belong to, I'm going to make a comparison. We are in the province of Quebec, what we call Quebecois, but we are part of Canada. I'm a Mohawk, and I am part of the Iroquois nation. The other nations that belong to it are the Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Tuscarora. We're known as the Six Nations, or the Haudenosaunee. I hope you'll be learning that in school, if not history, current events, because we are still very much part of Canada. When the boundaries of the North American continent was made, and a great war between the English and the French, our people fought on both sides. We refused to fight one another, but we did fight on both sides, and when the end came, peace was made. We had a big meeting across the river, what they call Ganawagi. And our people said, we'll come back as one people. And the English and the French met also after 1760. And they said, this new land, there'll always be a place for indigenous people. And there'll be a place for us, English and French. And we'll welcome many other people from all over the world will share this land. But they had always acknowledged that the land started with the indigenous people. And so from time to time, we are asked, come and give greetings. We do so because at the earliest times, at the beginning, we were asked to welcome visitors to this land. And so this morning, I gave you the first, the official greeting in a traditional Mohawk acknowledgement of Thanksgiving. Today, we have many things to be thankful for. You will remember the day you left your family. You start off, you say, I'm thankful for I am alive today. I walk this land. I am thankful for the health of my family, my brothers, sisters, father, and mother. I am thankful for where I live is a village that we all seemingly are in good mind. I am thankful for the region that I live in, which is called Quebec. Now I'm thankful for the country that I live in, that we may all live in peace and prosper. And so those are the translations of my message in Mohawk. I hope you have a great day of meeting. Tony Gamonage, Nyawa, thank you, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chief Mitchell. L'événement d'aujourd'hui est diffusé en direct sur
Today's event is being webcast across Canada, and we know that there are at least 250,000 young people joining us and 260 online. And we'd like to welcome all of you. We encourage you to take part in the discussion. Please send in your questions so that we can raise them here, put them to our speakers, and then later on in the day, you will have an opportunity to share the ideas and reflections that emerge during the breakout groups that are being held later on.
We will be accepting your feedback from breakout sessions prior to, during, and following each session. Webcast participants can send questions and comments by the following these steps. 1, click the participate button on the webcast player, enter your email address, and then write your questions in the space provided and press send. Alternatively, you can send your feedback following the breakout sessions or feedbacks to the questions that are posed to our dedicated email, which is forum150@experiencescanada.ca.
Les participants à la web diffusion peuvent envoyer leurs questions et ou leurs commentaires en
Webcast participants can send in their comments by clicking on Participate and then enter your email address and then enter your question in the appropriate space and click Send. You can also use our email address, forum150@experiencescanada.ca.
Pleasure to introduce to you the President and CEO of Experiences Canada and organizer of the Canada 150&Me project.
Mesdames et messieurs, Deborah Morrison, présidente et directrice générale.
Deborah Morrison, President and CEO of Experiences Canada.
Thank you and welcome. Nous sommes ravis de vous accueillir.
We're delighted to welcome you here today. The Canada 150&Me project began with a very simple idea more than 5 years ago. We knew that the 150th anniversary of Canada was not far off. And much like the celebrations of the centennial in 1967 belonged to a specific generation, we wanted to find a way of putting today's young Canadians center stage as part of the sesquicentennial celebrations.
1967, thanks to the emergence of new technologies and digital communications, your generation is so much more connected to the rest of the world and much more aware of the issues and challenges affecting our planet. You want to change the world just as much as every generation has previous to yours, but you're the first ones who actually have the tools and the capacity to do it in a way that no other ever has. Et pourtant, même si vous explorez.
And yet, even though you explore this vast digital universe, and even though you take part in communities of every form imaginable, it is nevertheless true that most young Canadians, when they turn 18, will probably have already visited a foreign country, but will probably never have visited another Canadian province.
For young Canadians to connect with one another seem to us to be growing fewer and fewer while the rest of the world opens up to you. We are excited about the possibilities of more Canadians growing up to be global citizens, that we need them to be, and we thought that Canada's 150th was an opportunity to encourage young Canadians to think first about Canada's own challenges and opportunities in that global context. Having the knowledge about the issues that we face right here at home and learning more about the local and national organizations that are working to address them is an important step towards stronger, more effective global citizenship. So we asked you to tell us what the greatest challenges and opportunities were facing Canada for your generation. Over 12,000 of you so far have responded, with more and more youth adding their voices with each and every regional forum we present. From among those submissions, we selected 150 youth to travel to one of 4 places to get to know each other and to learn more about the interests that they are most passionate about. 37 of them, some of whose work you saw displayed on the screens earlier here this morning, will be spending a whole week here in Montreal learning more about the many ways Canadian companies and individuals engage with the world through industry and trade, arts and culture, as well as international development and global security. Today, we're asking you to think about Canada's place in the world. What sets us apart from the rest of the world? And what is Canada's role and responsibility to the planet? Some of the ways are obvious. For example, just a couple of days ago, we commemorated the victory at Vimy Ridge. 100 years ago today, thousands of families began receiving telegrams informing them of their son's death, underscoring the extent of personal sacrifice that goes behind that national and international service. Other times, Canadian involvement in the world is more subtle, but just as impactful, whether it's UN diplomat John Humphrey, who authored the UN Declaration of Human Rights, le médecin Dr. Lucille Teasdale, qui a donné sa propre vie dans la
Dr. Teasdale, who sacrificed her own life in the fight against AIDS in Africa.
medium-sized businesses whose products and innovations every day are transforming industries worldwide. Today, we are pleased to welcome the Aga Khan Foundation, who has brought their trailer exhibit on Canada's role in global development that features the work of over 20 different Canadian organizations tackling global poverty. If you haven't already taken a tour, we encourage you to do so during the lunch break. We've also got a fantastic lineup of presenters, some of them emerging youth activists and leaders who will inspire you and show you that one person can indeed make a difference. And in just a few moments, we have 2 very different perspectives from 2 outstanding Canadians that are involved in Canada and the world, the legendary entertainer Gregory and social activist Daniel Germain. Un parti important de notre projet consiste à créer des liens.
An important part of our project consists of establishing links between young Canadians as well as exemplary leaders and activists working in these fields. We also want to recognize the contributions of Canadians who are truly striving for a better homeland. We're proud to be associated with the Order of Canada to mark its 50th anniversary this year and to showcase members of the Order at each and every one of our events.
The star of our show today is you. We've put all this time and effort into creating these youth forums so that we can hear your ideas, your concerns, and share your voices with the rest of Canada. After today's event, we will be choosing 38 of you from amongst the on-site and online audience to become part of a delegation of 150 youth that will travel to Ottawa from June 24th to July 2nd to participate in the National Youth Forum and Canada Day celebrations. At the end of the project, You will all lead us in creating a milestone report on the issues and opportunities for Canada that today's youth care most about. So please do something that your teachers and your youth leaders often don't tell you to do at events like this. Speak out, speak often, and speak loudly. Have a great day.
Merci, Deborah. Il y a plusieurs
Thank you, Deborah. There are a number of people we would like to thank for having made possible this project, this event, particularly Canada 150 and Youth Take Charge, a program of Heritage Canada. We would also like to extend our thanks to our national sponsors, TD Bank Group, Pharmascience, the McCain Foundation, TOU, and WestJet.
Canada 150&Me's regional program partners include Great West Life and the Goodman Family Foundation, Parks Canada, and the Aga Can Foundation. And finally, we would like to acknowledge our travel partners, Air Canada and Via Rail. Supporting youth and promoting education and community engagement are cornerstones of our presenting national partners' community giving strategies. We are proud to partner with them in Canada 150&Me project. It is our pleasure to invite Samia Medelsi, Branch Manager, TD Bank Group, to say a few words.
Bonjour, je suis vraiment ravie.
Good morning. I'm really delighted to be with you today for this very enriching day of exchanges, where you will be meeting people who share your vision of things. This will also give you an opportunity to enhance your skills and deepen your knowledge so that you can continue being agents of change, the kind of people we so much need.
Truly committed to making an impact in the communities where we work, live, and play. And that includes supporting forums like this one, giving each and every one of you the chance to share with us through your creativity the greatest challenge or opportunity you see facing Canada for your generation. Le 150e du Canada, ainsi que le 360.
Canada's sesquicentennial and the 325th anniversary of Montreal are an ideal opportunity to hold a dialogue such as this one. We can celebrate our achievements, reflect on our priorities, and determine what we want to accomplish from now on. We need you to guide us. We need you to engage us and to inspire us, all of us, mutually, so that we can make a difference right now. As we all know, the world is in constant evolution. It changes very quickly, and we are more and more connected to the world. And therefore, we have a growing responsibility to examine our imprint on a broader scale. To face some of the major challenges we face, whether we're talking about environmental issues, human rights, or our global interactions, the starting point is to make the population more aware of issues, and we have to engage and mobilize our communities. By promoting a greater awareness early in age with young people, we can ensure that Canadians, whether they live in Canada or abroad, act as a positive example of social responsibility and the creation of sustainable communities.
Face at home and abroad also require new thinking, new perspectives, which is why you have such an important role to play. Our job is not to simply leave these problems for you to solve. That wouldn't be fair. So we need to support you and provide opportunities through forums such as this one to help develop your networks, your leadership, and critical thinking skills, so you can feel more confident, to be bold in your thinking, and empowered to know that small ideas and actions, well, they can lead to significant change. Si j'avais à vous demander une chose, ce serait...
If there's one thing I would ask you to do, it is to keep the links you're going to be forging today alive over the long term. Stay in touch with one another and encourage each other to continue your efforts and to bring about change. Thank you for having given me this opportunity to speak to you. Congratulations for your commitment and your engagement, and I wish you a happy 150th anniversary and 375th anniversary of Montreal.
Merci encore, Madame Médé.
Thank you very much. Ms. Miliozzi, thank you very much for your support.
Gregory Shaws is probably very familiar to many of you in our Montreal audience. For several years here in Quebec, Gregory Shaws was a host of a very popular francophone science show for young people called Les Débrouillards. But to the rest of the world, Gregory is a multifaceted musician and artist.
Depuis l'âge de 7 ans, Grégory
Since the age of 7, he has won a broad range of music competitions in Canada and began studying music at Wilfrid Pelletier Music School. He then contributed to most of Canada's symphony orchestras and represented his country in Paris at an international piano competition. He has since accompanied Céline Dion across the world during her 1998 world tour. He composed the soundtrack for Blackout, a U.S. film. He's founded a number of major productions, including the Loto-Québec Montreal World Global Choral Competition, created Noir et Blanc, a very successful show in Canada and the US, and launched his first English language album, I Think of You, in 2006, and 2 French albums, presented his Bobino show in France, was a judge and singing professor for Star Academy. In 2016, he was invested in the Order of Canada by David Johnston, Governor General, for his creativity and his commitment to arts and Canadian culture and global culture. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gregory Shaw.
Thank you. Good morning, folks. This is probably going to be most interesting for myself because I want to talk to you about the subject I know the best, which is me. Which makes sense because you're at an event called 150&Me. So I will do it that way. Bonjour tout le monde. J'ai envie.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say that I feel very comfortable with what you're experiencing today. You know, I was born in 68. I'm 49 years old, but nowadays I keep thinking back to my teenage years, and I'll explain in a couple of minutes why so.
I asked my parents what I was supposed to do. I was a very docile kid. And I asked them what I was supposed to do, and they said 2 things. Listen, and then make people listen. In that order. And I did, and it worked out. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently, probably because I was very, very privileged to be born here, to be born in this country, to be born in this time, to be born to 2 parents who were absolutely phenomenal, and became president and vice president of Team Gregory. And so recently I've thought of how important it is when you are 14, when you're 15, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, to create this team that will help you become who you are supposed to become. And I'm pretty sure everyone here this morning is going to tell you that what you're about to do now, but for the next decades, is supremely important. And you may feel as though it's pandering, but it isn't. What you are going to do today and in the next few weeks and in the next few years is critically important. It is supremely important. Now, before I go any further, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. And to tell you about myself, I need to tell you about people who came before. And it'll give a certain meaning to actually listening to my experience. My mom is a very short, white, French-speaking woman from Quebec. She's 4'11". And she was born in 1938 in a very Catholic province, very Catholic family as well. My dad is from Trinidad in the West Indies. He was born in 1940. My mom came from a very large family. My grandfather was the 17th of 17 kids. My grandmother was the 9th of 9 kids. They decided to get married once their own parents had passed away, so they started pretty late. My dad is from a family of 17 kids as well. My grandfather was born on a plantation. Now, I need to mention this because a lot of people think, oh yeah, slavery, that was like a gazillion years ago. It wasn't a gazillion years ago. Slavery was abolished in the British colonies in the early 19th century, but it took a really long while before it took effect. Proof to that point is that slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865, but then 100 years later, there were still lynchings in southern states and still no right to vote. So that's a brief history. So my grandfather was born on a plantation. When he was 8, he was told, you can go. On lui a dit, hey, tu es affranchi, tu peux partir maintenant. He had nowhere to go. So the owner of the plantation said, you know what, if you stay and continue working, I'll make sure that you have access to education. So he was the first of his family to have access to education. Got education, became a police officer, eventually became chief of police, and because he knew how much education could make a difference in his life, he was resolute in the idea that his kids, his 17 kids, which proves that my grandfather had a lot of fun in life. My grandmother, maybe a little bit less. He had 17 kids. So he found that my dad was pretty rigorous and disciplined, and he thought, okay, we'll make sure that this one gets to go to university and then maybe can come back and become the foundation for our family. Now, I'm telling you this because we don't really have to think about access to education here. We're born in this incredible country where access to education exists, where the ability to express yourself exists. But that is not true everywhere in the world. In any case, my dad was sent, with everyone's help, he was sent to the US to study. Mon père est parti aux États-Unis, il est arrivé au début des années.
So he arrived in the early 60s and he met a relatively popular gentleman named Martin Luther King.
When he got to the US, and he started walking with Martin Luther King. Started marching with Martin Luther King for a few years and was sent to Montreal for a convention, an event like this morning. He was sent to Montreal to read a speech, to read some words written by Martin Luther King. He was supposed to be here for one night. He said those words and read the speech and then said, I'd like to have a good time. It seems like Montreal is a place to party. And so they said, yeah, we have a place called the Copacabana. It's on St. Catherine, the corner of Peel. It's a lot of fun. So my dad, 6'1", English-speaking, black man, went to that place. My mom was there. So mon père s'est enfargé dans ma mère. Actually, when I was young, I never asked myself about the fact that my dad was black and my mom was white. But I did wonder, 6'1", 4'11", I wondered how, they managed to do this. In any case, they did. My dad was here for one day, and instead he stayed 6 months. And he kept asking my mom, hey, if I asked you to marry me, what would you say? And my mom would say, well, you ask me and then you'll find out. And so eventually he did, and she said yes. And that yes changed his life completely. He was supposed to go back, never went back. And he came to live here. And he was welcomed here. Il était accueilli par mes grands-parents de façon absolue.
He was wonderfully welcomed with open arms. I'm not a city guy. I come from Saint-Germain-de-Cantan. He was welcomed with open arms by my grandparents, not because of the color of his skin, but because of the values he expressed.
That is something we take for granted because it exists mostly in this country, but it doesn't exist everywhere in the world. So my parents got married. My dad wanted 12 kids. My mom wanted 1. So we were 1. And that was pretty much it. And both my parents, because they came from poor families that valued education, they decided education would be extremely important for me. And so they did everything. My mom was the president of Team Gregory, whether I liked it or not. My mom had a fantastic relationship with my school bag because she would welcome the school bag. She would love it. She would ask questions. It was fantastic. And she surveilled everything I was doing. She checked on every one of my of everything I've ever written as a kid, as a child. And she would not settle for a simple effort. It always needed to be the ultimate effort. It always needed to be more. When I was 9 years old, on my birthday, my mom said, "You want to practice your piano?" And I said, "It's my birthday, maybe later." And she said, "You sure? Because you have a concert next week." And I said, "Okay." And then my friends came to the house, and we had a party, and that was great. And then at lunchtime, my mom came to see me, and she said, "Okay, so now you're going to practice?" I said, "Well, no, my friends are there." She said, "Okay, here are your two choices. Either we tell your friends to go home and you can practice, or we tell your friends to go downstairs and play with your gifts and you practice." My mom was not cool. She was not cool at all, but she was resolute in the idea that I would go as far as I actually wanted to go. And I wasn't that disciplined as a kid, but that was the time where I needed to listen. And that's why I started by telling you, il faut écouter et ensuite s'assurer que le monde.
You have to listen and then make sure that the entire world listens to you. Once you've found your mission, once you've found where you want to go.
My mom, and I may be telling you a lot about my mom this morning because she passed away just a few weeks ago. She had Alzheimer's. She declined for about 15 years. But before that in her life, she was such a resolute captain for my team. So in any case, many years after, as a kid, I eventually became disciplined. I eventually became rigorous. I played the piano and won national and international competitions, and I started playing the violin and the same, and the clarinet, and I sang with choirs, and eventually one day, after being part of a choir for a really long time, actually I probably should tell you this, I went to see my first grade teacher, and I said, "I want to be part of the choir," and my first grade teacher said, "Okay," and I said, "Where are they?" And she said, "We'll start with you." So there were a choir of 74 kids, 73 girls, and one boy, which was fantastic. And I did that for a few years. Then I was recruited by a choir school. And then after that, when I became a young adult, when I was 16, I was told by my conductor, "Okay, we'll send you to conduct a choir." And I said, "No." And he said, "Okay, I get your no, but I'll tell them you'll be there next week." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it for 3 months." I did it for 26 years. And the fantastic thing about that is we started traveling. On a commencé à faire le tour du monde. On allait en Chine. On allait au Japon.
We went to China, Japan, Europe, South Africa, Indonesia. We traveled all over the world with the choir. I directed with young people, people exactly your age. And ultimately, we made so many friends everywhere.
Would host us that they started to come to Canada as well. And so some summers we'd have like 2, 5, 10, 15, 25 choirs with hundreds of kids coming. So I thought, okay, let's turn this into a festival. And so the first year of the festival that I founded, I was expecting 800 kids. 8,000 choristers came that year. And that year, at the end of the event, I saw a familiar face. It was my first grade teacher who came towards me. And I said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And she said, "You know what? I came because I know that all this, the 8,000 choristers, the hundreds of thousands of spectators, and all of that, I know that all of that is because of me." And she was right. She was right. And the reason why she was right is because when I asked her in first grade, "Can I be part of the choir?" she could have said, "Sorry, buddy, there are no choirs in this school." She could have said, "Not my job. I have not been asked to do this." But instead, she said yes, and that she listened to me. I was trying to make her listen to me. She listened to me, and then she said yes, which proves that yes is certainly the most powerful word in any vocabulary, in any language. By the way, I tried my entire high school years to convince girls at my school that yes was a fantastic word. And it didn't work out that well. But for the rest of my life, it has worked out. So in any case, I became an adult. I studied law. I became a lawyer. Went on playing music and traveling and playing around the world. Eventually started a company, production company, television. Eventually started doing some live shows. I had the opportunity to travel the world with one of the biggest stars from the 1990s, who I had been friends with. Every experience that I lived, that I had a chance to be part of, convinced me that more could be done, that I could dream bigger, that I could try something more, which is what the human adventure is supposed to be, and has been for me. for a very, very, very long time. So did a bunch of things. This year, as was mentioned in the introduction, I was so honored to be made an officer of the Order of Canada for my performances, pour les performances, pour la télévision, pour ça, but also because I have also spent the last 30 years working with kids, through choirs, through science, through teaching, in many ways, and that is probably what I'm the most proud of. I have spent maybe 30% of my time working on stuff that I want to do, and another 30% dedicated to my family, first to my mom and my dad. I've been married now for about 10 years. I have a 5-year-old, which is also why I think of your age a lot recently. I have a 5-year-old. She is way too much like me. When I was a kid, I would sleep 3 hours a night. My parents, it drove them crazy. My daughter is genetically mine, because she also sleeps only 3 hours, and she's always ready for a challenge or for something. I gave her violin when she was 2. She's really a fine musician already at 5, and she plays the piano, and she plays the clarinet, and she's interested in a gazillion things. And she is listening, and she does know how to make other people listen. Now, that's a very, very quick overview of what's happened in my life. Now, I want to come back to the beginning, because I told you this is going to be interesting for me, and maybe not so much for you. But at the same time, I am the result of a great number of experiences. Je suis le résultat de l'expérience qui ont été vécues par mes grands-parents.
I'm the outcome of my grandparents, my parents, and my own experiences.
Their reality was much different from my reality. When I bought my first house, my dad's reaction was, could you imagine your grandfather didn't have the right to own property, and here you are with a house, which shows how in very little time, when people intervene and make sure that people will listen to them, things change. I told you about my dad coming to the United States in the 60s. In the 60s, he couldn't go into the same hotel as white people, as white folks, would not eat in the same restaurants, was not allowed to go into a bus through the front door. He had to go through the back door and never sit down. Those were realities in the 1960s. And then we had the Obama administration for 8 years, which is such a change. And then we decided to go back in the other direction, but that's something separate, because things do change, evolve, and go back and forth. So that was true for my dad. So imagine how the world has changed from my grandfather on a plantation to myself having the opportunity to become pretty much anything that I could think of. Ce changement-là, s'il a existé en 2 générations.
So if that change happened in 2 generations' time, it's because the changes that you were going to be triggering could also come about in very little time.
I asked my parents, what should I do? Which sounds like a song by Doris Day. And they did say, listen, and then make sure people will listen to you. Now, I know this sounds facetious in a way, and it sounds like an old guy telling young guys what to do. I'm not telling you what to do. But this is my experience. You do have to listen. Not necessarily to me or to others. Listen to that voice inside. The voice that says, this annoys me to the point where I want to do something. This is a passion for me to the point where I want to do something. This is incredibly interesting and critical for the world, and I want to do something about it. Listen to that voice inside. Écoutez ce qui se passe à l'intérieur de vous, qui parle déjà, qui
Listen to these loud voices inside yourselves.
intérieur, qui s'applique des fois pour un.
So the same passion, which sometimes can apply in your hearts for music or an artist or a star or a film, listen to that voice.
I'm not actually telling you to be subservient and listen to other people. I'm actually suggesting that you listen to yourselves and find that mission. The urgency is to find a mission. Find your mission. Because if you fail in your mission, whatever that might be, You might be dentists or architects or politicians or lawyers, as Chief Mitchell said at the very beginning. It may happen. The urgency is not when you find it. The urgency is to find it, to find that mission. And then the obligation, because freedom comes with an obligation, the obligation is to do something about it. I'm pretty sure if you're here, it's because you feel that you have that fire already. But sometimes that fire meets with, events that are difficult to overcome. Sometimes grief, sometimes a no instead of getting a yes. Sometimes a no from people just discourages us. So I am telling you this morning, because it's worked out for me. Listen to what's inside, and then make sure you give yourself every opportunity to make others listen. Now, the fantastic thing is that we live in a country where all of that is possible. Most of the world does not live in this country, or does not live in countries where that is possible. I will finish by telling you this. By telling you two things. I had the privilege to host a show a number of years ago that was called Being 16. And I had the opportunity to go across Canada and interview kids who were 16. And then I went to Haiti. And then I went to Thailand. And then I went to Senegal. And the incredible thing, and to Brazil. And the incredible thing is that I would ask 16-year-olds what they were expecting of the world, what they wanted to do, what they wanted to accomplish. And the funny and in a way sad, was that the grandest schemes did not come from this country, from kids here. The grandest schemes came from this kid in Senegal who wanted to be a fighter pilot and become a pilot and pilot planes. And all the while, he was in this very, very, very poor part of Senegal. All the while I thought, boy, man, you want to rethink your future because there is no way that's going to happen. I did not say that. But I was thinking, man, it's impossible. This 16-year-old girl in Haiti, she had to walk an hour and a half every day to get from her little town to the school. And she had to skip school in the afternoon so she could go back, walk another hour and a half, and then sell stuff to tourists. And she wanted to be a doctor. And I thought, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I thought, my God, your ambition is so great when you compare it with the facilities, with the infrastructure, with what is actually feasible. And yet, the beliefs, the plan, the projects, the ambitions were great. And I felt a little sad back then that in my own country, I'd hear 16-year-olds say, yeah, well, I just want to chill and, enjoy life. And I thought it's sad. I'm not judging. I'm just saying it was sad. So I hope that this idea just of knowing how in other places in the world, ailleurs dans le monde, les gens rêvent.
Elsewhere, people dream of making changes, of changing the world, and they can't necessarily fulfill that dream because they haven't had the privilege, the good fortune of being born here in a location where you all have access to education and where you can express your own interest and will.
This opportunity, this privilege that we have to live here. And what I'm saying now is not political. It's not political. It's personal. We live in a privileged place, in a privileged country, and that makes our responsibility even greater. So you find your mission, and you make your mission come true. You accomplish your mission, because by you accomplishing yours, you're helping me accomplish mine. You're helping my 5-year-old accomplish hers, and we can make the world listen if we try. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Charles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles. It was a pleasure. We have a couple of minutes to answer questions, to take questions. Any of you who'd like to raise a question should please go to the two ambassadors who have a microphone. Sarah and Farid are going to be walking around in the aisle. So if you have questions, just queue behind or next to.
For those of you that want to ask a question, to come line up where Sarah and Farid are here, and we'll have time for a few questions for Gregory.
Pour ceux et celles également qui participent en ligne,
Also, for those of you who are online, you can send in your questions to the address we've given you, and we will try to give you an opportunity to express yourselves.
Yes. If you're watching online, feel free to participate in the two ways that we mentioned before, clicking on the participate button or sending us an email at form150@experiencescanada.ca.
Let's get it on. Get it on.
Hi.
Hi.
What are some ideas?
Oops.
I know that you do a lot of volunteer work and
I do.
work with children. What are some ideas you have that we can do as individuals and as a country to help kids like the girl in Haiti that wants to be a doctor?
That's such a great question. What is your first name?
Benita?
Okay, Benita, this is such a great question. Now, the first thing I have to say, I do not believe that any kid at all, at any age, can make it without supreme education. I don't think so. And I don't think that the education system in any province can make it on its own. It's impossible. What was Clinton used to say, it takes a village? A lot of people have said that. It takes a village. So if we want education to work, if we want kids to learn, if we want people to become the inner Mozart that they're supposed to become, then your parents need to be part of it. The person at the drugstore needs to be a part of it. Everyone in the community needs to be part of it. So I do believe that one first move is to get people who are not inside the education system, not official teachers, to teach. What is that African proverb? If you can walk, you should run, and if you know, you should teach. Well, I think it applies. I think the number one thing is, no matter what you choose to become, architect, a dentist, a secretary, whatever, teaching should be part of the project. And so in order for that to happen, schools, communities need to make that possible, for people to share their experience and share their knowledge as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benita.
Okay, before we ask the next question, we'll get maybe 2 or 3 questions at once from the line.
Okay, that's
here.
good.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of the most important virtues that people of this generation need to have in order to succeed?
Okay, that's good.
Oh, then I go?
Yep.
So what are your strategies for getting over kind of tough times and people who are not cooperating?
Okay, I'll start with that one, and then I'll come back to yours. First of all, you should welcome tough times, because you don't know what you're up against until you fail. Failure is fantastic. I stand here today, I can tell you I have a doctorate in law, I've won a gazillion competitions, I've sold 2 million tickets, I've sold 1 million albums. I can tell you that now. What we don't say in an introduction is how many times I've failed. I've failed and failed and failed and failed. I'm an entrepreneur. I've made money. I've lost money. I've failed so many times. Failure is fantastic. So going through a tough time is extraordinary. And then you know what you're made of. Because you find out, okay, am I going to dream smaller or am I going to dream bigger? And if everyone at any moment were always open to say, you know what, we'll give you a hand, then everything would be easy. But nothing worthwhile, really, and this is it's not just a sentence, nothing worthwhile is ever easy. So, the important thing, I think the Dalai Lama says that, it doesn't matter if you lose, but don't lose a lesson. So, I think it applies. When you fail, when you try something out and it doesn't work, you get back up and you listen to what didn't work, and then you regroup and plan again. Failure is actually fantastic. And anyone who's ever succeeded, in the words of the very, very wise Wayne Gretzky, and you probably heard this before, he failed on every shot attempt that he did not take. But he did score, on those that he did take. So you have to try and fail, and that's great. Which ties into the virtues that we were talking about. I say there are a few virtues that are important. I got your question right? Yeah, virtues that are important for your generation. I'd say the first one is curiosity. And it's funny because I know you guys think of yourselves as being very curious. And sometimes I'm not so sure. And the reason I'm not so sure is because the world has changed so much since I was your age. When I was your age and we'd go into search pattern and search for something, we would search and search and search and search and search and search and make our search a little bit tighter and a little bit more precise and a little bit more precise. And you guys have something technologically called Google, or Bing for those of you who work on Microsoft. And it's fantastic because you put in a keyword and then it comes out with a gazillion articles, but no one consults those gazillion articles. Usually look at the first and the second and the third, and then curiosity dies. And it cannot, because the truth is in a multiplicity of perspectives and of stories and of articles. I say curiosity is supremely important. And then the second thing is, and this is more difficult for you guys than it was for us, teamwork. Teamwork is undeniably the most important thing. And so I come from a time where families were larger, although I'm an only child. 5, 6 kids, all living in the same room, all having to share the same car and the same television set. And today, things are different. I'm not saying they're bad. I think they're different. We need teamwork more than ever. And I don't think you guys are used to teamwork because there's so many things that are individual. You don't listen to the same music. You don't watch the same movies. Teamwork is supremely important. Can you guys do it? I'm sure you can. But I think it's supremely important.
So we're going to take 2 more questions. What do you think is the biggest challenge for Canadian youth today?
Number. I think that's the biggest challenge. I told you before, I was told, and I think it was accurate, I was told as a teenager, listen and then make people listen. I think the biggest challenge for you guys is there aren't that many of you. We, the elderly, the old people, there's just there's just so many of us. And so while we're preoccupied by our health and by how people will treat us when we stop working, and while we're preoccupied, you guys have to shout really loud to tell us, hey, bunch of morons, the planet is disappearing, it's dissipating, and there's no water. You have to shout those things because there's just so many of us. And obviously you're right, and I'm not trying to be facetious. Your generation is right because you've got it right in front of your eyes. You can see it. You can tell that is the challenge of your generation. And in a way, we can too, but it's not so comfortable for us. So I'd say the biggest challenge is not your intelligence, because it's there. It's not communication skills, because they're there. It's not being open to the world, because it's there. It's not access to free speech or access to education, because it's there. It's the sheer size of the people you need to convince. But can you convince people? Of course. I'll give you a few examples. Nelson Mandela, Gandhi. The entire world was against them, and they still got people to listen. And plus, they got them to listen through non-violent action. I spoke of Martin Luther King before. We got some pretty good examples. So if any of you guys want to become Martin Luther King and Gandhi and a number of those, it can work. One more? One more?
Yeah, one more. What do you think is the biggest opportunity that my generation needs to take in the future?
Biggest opportunity. There are so many. There are a lot. Because we just spoke of challenges, but opportunities there are. I'm pretty sure you can't imagine this, but when my mom was your age, her choice of plans for the future was like 3 things. She could become a nurse, a teacher, or an accountant. I'm pretty sure you can become anything. Well, I'm not saying you can become a center for the Raptors, because I think you and I are both too short. But other than that, you can become absolutely anything. So if you multiply the number of you are in your generation, if you take every one of you guys. And by the way, in answering your question, I'm thinking of my friend from first grade. We were together in elementary school and then high school. He was an overweight kid who wanted to be a pilot. And so we encouraged him all the while, but at some point we started thinking he's never going to fit on a plane. And I know you're thinking what I'm saying is not nice. No, this was the reality. He was a big guy. He was a big guy, and he was so big that he loved to swim, and he never won a race swimming because he'd jump into water and all of us would move, with the waves. I'm trying to image it so you understand. He was a big guy. But we still encouraged him. Every one of his exposés in school, they were always on planes, on anything that flew, helicopters and the whole thing. And in our mind, we thought, yeah, it's fun, but man, you never do that because you're just too big. And there was a show when I was a kid on television that had a dragon who wanted to be a fireman. And in every episode, the dragon would say, hey, I want to be a fireman. And everyone around would say, well, you can't be a fireman. You're a dragon. You make fire. So in any case, he was a fireman. And my friend did become a pilot. And he moved eventually to the prairies and was in charge of one of the programs for the Air Force here in Canada. So it was true when I was a kid. It was true for him. And he surprised us because by the time he was in grade 14, he was slim and he would say, yeah, he would tell me right now, you can't fit on a plane. So there were challenges. He could make it. So I would say, in conclusion, listen. This is redundant. Listen to inside that inner voice that says, this is what I want to do, and then do it. And if you don't, then you're wasting something. You're wasting something that is available. When a few generations ago, a lot of people would have thought of doing something and it wasn't available. Do you know what you want to do?
I'm actually not too sure. I just want to try as much as I can. So my life goal is basically to become an academician. I just want to learn as much as possible.
Can I ask you one more question, and then I'll shut up? I have one more question.
Yeah.
Forget what you want to do. What would you like to change? You personally. When you listen to adults or other kids your age, and you think about the planet, because you and I, we live on this vessel. What's the number one thing that you'd like to change?
The internet. Everyone's hooked onto the internet.
Everyone is what?
Hooked onto the internet.
Because access to information and therefore to education?
Yeah.
Okay,
well, too much. Or that's what I feel.
Well, you got a plan. Figure out now how to do that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Donc malheureusement, c'était tout le temps. Donc
unfortunately, we've run out of time for the question period. But we thank you very much for your participation, Mr. Charles.
I'd like to invite Maria Nevois to come to the stage and thank you on behalf of the forum.
Thank you, guys.
Our second presenter this morning is Danielle Germain, a founder of the Breakfast Clubs of Canada.
Danielle Germain a fondé le club.
Danielle Germain founded the Quebec Breakfast Club in 1994. This is a non-profit organization that gives children from poor neighborhoods a nutritious breakfast in an environment that feeds their self-esteem. In 2005, he founded the Breakfast Club of Canada, and 1 year later, he created the Millennium Summit of Montreal, an event that has become a major international convention for social activism.
Mr. Germain started the Children's Hour, which celebrates and recognizes schools and students' successes. Mr. Germain was invested as a member of the Order of Canada in 2010 for his dedication and commitment to improving the lives of children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Danielle Germain.
One, two, un, deux, un, deux. Un, deux, un, deux. Hello.
1, 2, 1, 2. Can you hear me? Perhaps you could raise the volume a tiny bit. Thank you very much.
Quelque chose de très...
I'm going to do something very risky.
At the count of 3, I'm going to ask all of you to stand up, to stretch, and to try not to talk too much, and then sit again, okay? 1, 2, 3. You can take a few seconds, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I've got it. That was pretty good. Wow, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. I'm just going to say something, make something right at the beginning. This accent never gets any better than this, by the way. So I'm sorry about it. How many of you speak only French here? Just lift up your hand, please. Wow. So I do have to talk with this accent, so I'll try, okay? So forgive me if sometime I'm not saying the exact word, but I'll do my best. It's a privilege to be here. It's truly a privilege. I've never spoke for money in the 22 or 23 years I've been a social entrepreneur. I always refuse to speak and be paid for it because I want to choose who I'm going to speak to and because I'm driven to bring a message to the right crowds. I believe you are the generation I've been waiting for. I truly mean this, and I'll try to prove you why. My slides are all in French. I could have translated them, but I didn't know the crowd. So my first slide is to turn the world towards peace. About 7 years ago, I received the Medal of Peace. They announced that to me in June 2010. And they say in November, you'll receive the Medal of Peace. And I was trying to make sense of this. You know, why do I deserve a Medal of Peace? I was 46. At that time, I'm 53 years old. Well, you know how to count, so you already knew that. So I was 46, and I was thinking, wow, who would have thought that I would receive the Medal of Peace? And I was really, really moved and touched by it. Why? When I got to the time to receive this award in November 2010, I said to the crowd, it was 500 people, and I said, you know, I'm honored to receive this medal, but I have to tell you something. For the first 23 years of my life, I was not in peace. I was raised in foster home. I was raised in a very tough, I'll be careful because we are streaming, but I was raised in a very tough environment. And at 22, I was in jail in New York. So I said to the crowd, you can still change your mind if you don't want to give me that Medal of Peace after I just told you that. Obviously, things changed for me. When I got out of jail at 23 years old, I wanted to change my life. I wanted to have a new start. So the first thing I did when I decided to change is I lied my way into an NGO to travel to Mexico City. As you can tell, I was not changed yet. I wanted to change, but I was not changed yet. So I arrived in Mexico City with that NGO, and they brought me to a dump site where 50,000 kids were living. And I couldn't freaking believe it, what I saw that day. 50,000 kids living in a dump, sleeping in the dump, and their salary was, as they go to trash, it was a good bag or whatever you want to call it of trash a day. Believe me, Mexico City, one of the biggest cities in the world. When I put my feet in that dump site that day, something happened to me. I not only saw those kids with my eyes, but I felt them. And I made a promise that day that I was going to fight for them for the rest of my life. Little that they knew, I had nothing. Nothing. But the anger that I felt all my youth, that day, it changed from a different anger. It was an anger of justice. It was an anger of making change, bringing change. I, unfortunately, obviously did not graduate from high school. Sometimes when I do conference in high school or college, they say, don't talk about your education. And because they say that, I always do talk about it. Because I want you to know that, I know you're already ahead of me, but I want you to know no matter where you start from, there's a world out there that needs your dream, your vision, needs your idea. You are the generation. Whether you want to take this or not, some of you will. Believe me, some of you will take this challenge. I've learned so many things. I've never done anything else in my life than fight for kids after that first day in the dump. I went to Mexico City 30, 35 times. I went to Haiti 30, 35 times with nothing. I had nothing. Bringing a team of 2 people, 5, 50, 100, 200 people at the time coming from college, university, doctor, dentist from Canada, USA, Europe, what have you. They were coming. And everybody said, wow, we love the dream that this guy has. We love the vision, but we cannot stand the visionary. That was me. Because obviously I was rough. I didn't learn how to speak properly. But people believe in me, came, took me by the shoulder and said, let us teach you how to sometimes shut your mouth, how to sometimes to listen, how to sometimes to say, I'm sorry. I've learned so many things early in that time, so many things that as I'm speaking about it, I can see it. So many stats that are not stats for me, that are reality. Tellement de statistiques pour moi qui sont pas juste des statistiques.
These are not just statistics and numbers, they're reality in my life.
5,000 kids die every day of non-natural cause. What that means is it could be solved, it could be changed, it could be, they could receive the medicine or they could receive the help for it. But 25,000 kids die every day of non-natural cause. Let me give you a picture in your mind. This is the equivalent of 65 Boeing 777 full of kids who crash every day with no survivor. This is what's happening today. When I was young and we talk about poverty, we talk about the third world. That's what defined 1/3 of the world were poor. That's what defined the poverty. Shame on my generation and me. We talk today about the 2/3 world. Under our watch, under my watch, it did not get better. It got worse. I am desperate to see young men, young women, to rise up and to say, it's enough. It's enough about injustice. It's enough about child soldier. My assistant is here. I was just talking to Romeo Dallaire, who's dedicated his life for child soldier. I could have told you so many stats that's happening right now under our watch and now yours. Often people, when they talk to young people, they say, you are Canada's future. That's not true. You are Canada's present. You are there, and I'll prove it to you in a moment with example of people that I know you've heard of. Are you still there with me? Is the accent okay? Thank you. One day I met a woman. I was in a conference in Vancouver. Her name is Jackie Pollinger. There was about 300 NGO at that conference. And that woman, she spoke and she was so determined. She had such a passion that I wanted to talk to her, but if it was 10,000 people, I said, I will never get to the front of the stage. I'll follow her. So I follow her to her hotel lobby. And I said, Jackie, can I talk to you? And she turns around, she says, sure. So I'm telling her what I'm doing in Mexico and Haiti, and she's listening, and she's really passionate, and I'm scared because I think she's going to see everything, and if I had something to hide, she can see through you. And she said, tell me what you're doing at home, Daniel. Oh, I said, it must be the accent. I'll tell you again, I'm working in Mexico and Haiti. I'm not doing anything at home. And like a big fish, she had a net, and I jumped right into it. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, really? I always thought it was impossible to have a vision for the world if you don't have a vision for your own." And I flew back to Montreal, and I won't tell you what I thought of her in my mind, but it was not happy thought, believe me. I said, "Who does she think she is? I do that, I'm doing this." But obviously, this meant something to me. It sank deep down inside, and as I arrived in Montreal, I sat down with people who were used to travel with me, and I said, "We need to do something at home. I want 2 ingredients. I want to work with kids, and I want an option of changing something." You know why? Because when you have the option of changing something, it's up to you. Find the last great idea, work hard, and make it happen. We started in 1994 with nothing. Believe me, nothing. I had no salary, nothing. Like 1 week, I could take $100, and then the other week we had an old car, so I can drive the car, no salary. It started from scratch. We had to put a commercial line for this new organization we're putting together. It cost $80 a month. And I said, who has $80? Maybe I can put $10 a month. Can you? That's how we start. And we decide to feed kids breakfast in one school in South Shore of Montreal. One school. We had nothing. Just the passion, the determination. We were not scared. We were not. We were bold. We wanted to do something. We wanted to change something. Listen to me. This first morning, November 1st, 1994, we fed 100 kids in one school in South Shore of Montreal. 21 years later, we're feeding more than 170,000 kids every day in this country. This would be a good time to clap, by the way. More than 170,000 kids every day. We have a budget of millions, 95% or maybe more private. Why? Because we just did the first step. Because we knew that if we do the first step, by the time we turn around, the vision, the dream on that path of destiny that life had given us, it would work. We served 27 million breakfasts this year, just in 1 year, across the country. In every province, every territory. We are the largest organization working with First Nation, who is, by the way, Canadian shame in many ways. I heard some kids ask questions to Gregory, who, by the way, was very humble in his presentation, but because what he has left for the generation in this province and in Canada, it's a lot. He has given a lot for young people, and I want to honor the fact that he was really humble as he spoke about his life and his giving, because he did give a lot. Did I lose my thought? Where was I? Huh? First Nation, thank you. We have 170 programs who touch First Nation who are on reserve. There is a motion at the UN who's the First Nation is asking to define the word genocide. Is the genocide what will happen in some African country, or it's what happened years ago as the First Nation were put in a very weird and awkward situation? Hopefully now there's new young chief that are leading the First Nation, who have education, who want to turn things around. But when I heard that question of a young man, what should we do? Is there something? There's a lot to do with First Nation, not as telling them what to do, but working hand to hand with the First Nation, and as young people Imagine that. Only imagine the powerful gesture of youth coming together, no matter which race you are, no matter what your history is, just doing something. Are you still there? I know you're tired. I'm almost done, okay? Do you want to give me 10 more minutes? Just raise your hand, okay? I'll feel better. Thank you. I'll take a chance. I'll take that. Thank you very much. I'll try to, I'm really bad with this, so I'll try to change. Youth are often the voice of change. And I won't surprise you because this is it's in English too, wow. Did they do something? Thank you very much, wow, thank you very much. This is efficient. Youth are often a voice of change. We have in this country, and I know you probably, how many of you know the We Day? We have young voice who have rise up in this country. I met this young man, Craig Kilberger, when he was 12. I saw on TV a young man coming back from India and Pakistan. Let me tell you just that. He was 12 years old. He saw an article about a young man called Iqbal Masih from Pakistan who was killed. You know why? Because this young man didn't want to be a slave anymore. And he became a voice for that generation who say, no more, no mass, it's enough. And this young man got killed. Craig in Ontario, 12 years old, read the story, got touched, made a presentation at his school. I'm going quickly. Then he went to do a presentation at the union in Ontario, asking for $10,000. And he's really bold when he's asking, if you can find it on YouTube. He said, maybe you're saying that I'm only 12 years old, but 12 years old is no excuse to do nothing. He raised $100,000. So you read the article in September. This is how quick something can change. He read the article in September 1994, I believe. Maybe I'm 1 year, but I believe I'm right. September 1994, he went to the union presentation in November, and in December, he was in India and Pakistan learning about child slavery. The sound, please.
Way through the corridors of Congress in his fight to shut down child labor. Craig Kilberger is trying to find his way through the corridors of Congress in his fight to shut down child labor.
You have the power in your words, in your actions, and in your policy making.
Craig decided to take a 7-week trip to South Asia.
Has he ever gone to school? He does not know what a school is.
With a group of friends, he founded an organization called Free the Children.
I'd like to commit to building 100 schools around the world. 100 schools.
Very, very powerful vehicle that you're creating here to move children in this direction to take action.
12 years old. Within 5 months, he was already in the news all over the world. There's so many stories I could tell you about that, but I won't do it. Not today. I only have maybe 5 minutes left. Do I have 5 minutes? I'm closing, okay? Maybe you know that person too, Malala Yousafzai. She'll as a Canadian citizen in 2 weeks, tomorrow. She'll be received tomorrow in Ottawa as a Canadian citizen. Who can tell me what was Malala's dream? Anybody? What? Louder, please. Okay. Anybody else? You're right, but it's even more simple than that. She wanted to go to school. That's all. Having the conviction doesn't make your journey easier, but it makes your dream possible. Malala Yousafzai was shot. That was the previous one. But she didn't die. She became one of the 100 most influential women in the world and Nobel Prize winner. What does that tell you? It doesn't matter what your dream is. I heard a question earlier, and I'm telling you, doesn't matter if you come from Pakistan where they don't allow you to go to school, you can say, no, it's enough. I'm going. She became a voice for millions of girls in the world now, and they are going to school. Why? Because at one point, young people are rising up to say it's enough. What I want to close by, it's time to act, is really good. This guy is really good. Yeah, he is. There's an expression who say, they didn't know it was impossible, and they did it. Mark Twain said that. And I want to tell you, if you think it's impossible, it's never going to happen. But the generation that is rising up and the youth that are here today and across this country, I hope you don't know it's impossible because you're going to do it. Whatever dream you have. I finish with this. It's time to act to make a difference. It's time to act to be inspiring to others. It's time to speak out. It's time to bring change to your generation, to your school, to your city, to your own country. It's time to do better than we did. It's time to dream big. It's time to have big dreams. It's time. It's your time. Take it. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Germain.
Thank you so much, Mr. Germain. Now we are going to open the floor for Q&A again. If you want to put your questions online, send them in right away. Please be sure to write your name in the question as well.
Questions again. We hope to get a few questions in. Also, if you're watching online, please send us your questions, and we will get to them this time after we have a few here in Montreal. If you can include your name in your online question as well. So we'll start with 2 questions, please.
Okay, so I was wondering, how do you think our generation should balance helping people right here in Canada in need while also still assisting people in countries all over the world?
Well, I think from my point of view, and I'm not making it a law, but I've learned so much by doing a difference at home. I am working with the UN now. I'm working with Jeffrey Sachs, who was my idol. I'm at meetings sometime now with the UN, and I feel like, wow, they all doctor in something, and I have no education whatsoever, but I did something at home that was significant, and this is now my story. And my story has opened me the door to help everywhere in the world. So I don't know which way it's going to go for you, but if sometime when we have a big dream, it does start somewhere, and it will be logic if it starts near you, near your house, near your city, or something like that. That's all I can say.
My name is Carly. I'm from Vancouver, BC, and my question to you is this. With the lack of empathy in a portion of today's generation, how can we motivate other youth to help the less fortunate and to take part in causes that matter in today's society?
Well, I don't think this generation lacks of empathy. I don't believe that. I believe sometimes we just need to make the first move of a dream. And sometimes a lot of people are writing me, and when I start and I ask something from a company or what have you, it would take 8 months till I get a call back or answer. So I said one day I'll be in the position where people ask me stuff, and I will try to answer contrary to what I receive. A lot of people are asking me, how do I have this dream, but I don't know how to do the first step. And I think it's always the most difficult one, making the first step. Your conviction will bring you to do your first step. And sometimes you have to decide in which order you're going to be. Is it I'm going to be part of a team, or I'm going to lead the team? And this is a very important question we need to ask ourselves, because it doesn't matter. What matters is the result, the change that we are bringing.
Okay, we've got a question. We've got a question here online. This question comes in from Prashir. What advice do you have for youth who have big dreams but don't feel they have the support from the people around them?
Wow. Welcome to reality. I understand. No, but I understand. I hope it sounds good. I didn't mean in a bad way. I say that. It is what it is. your passion and your determination. I don't think Malala Yousafzai, anybody took her seriously, or maybe they did in some way because they shot her. But the determination that she had, what brought her to make her dream possible. Obviously, I'm not wishing for anybody to get shot, but I'm wishing for everybody to be determined and desperate to make a difference, to make that first step, and to make sure that if they don't have the help, listen, for the person online, call me. I'll spend 15 minutes over the phone with you and try to understand and give you advice. It'll be quicker this way.
Hi, my name's Rustam. I'm from Panorama Ridge.
My email is daniel@forthechildren.ca, by the way.
Vancouver. My question for you is, before you saw the kids and after you got out of jail, you said you saw the change once you saw the kids, but when you got out of jail, you were searching for a change. What kind of change were you looking for?
Well, I was looking for peace. All my youth, I was in trouble. I was running away from something or with something, but I wanted I was looking for peace. I wanted to have a normal life. I wanted to, I've never listened. Sometimes I'm trembling thinking that I would have passed by the life that life had for me, because I've never expected anything even close to that. You know, and I disclosed my past right away. On the first year I started working with NGO, I went to see a news anchor and I said, listen, this is my story. I don't want any news, anybody to tell my story at my place. I told my story. And people, when they saw the result and when they saw the change after 4, 5, 6 years, they bought the change, they bought the result. And I was looking probably to heal a lot of Daniel at the beginning before I start to having the full vision of helping everybody.
Okay, great. We have time for one more question in the back, and then we've got one more here online.
Okay. Oh, I kind of feel bad. It's not really a question, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate the presentation that you just presented to us. You seem like a very genuine and kind human being, and just from the words you said, they stuck with me. And I just want to say it's really appreciated, so thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. That's what we want.
Okay, so one question here that's come through online. This is from Jithvan in Vaughan, Ontario. Poverty and homelessness in Canada are a topic that are not discussed enough. How do you suggest that our generation tackles poverty here at home while balancing our own lives?
Well, I think your answer is in your question. We need to talk about it. I think we have, you know, I don't want to take side, but, you know, we have a new Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who I believe has the vision, the compassion, and the desire to bring this to the forefront. I believe in his leadership, and believe me, I'm not paying. If he would do something against or contrary, I would say that as well. But I'm convinced, I know him a bit. We have worked together in the past in some event. I believe we have a government who's willing to bring change. So if you raise your voice, all of you, or some of you, this government will listen. First of all, your government at home, so in your city, in your province, and then in your country. This is 150th anniversary of Canada. It's time to bring this as well to the table and challenge our government to bring change in those issues, because we live in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Well, we need that everybody in this country have the same feeling.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Thank you to all of you who participated online and to all of you here with your thoughtful questions. We do have to close off our questions now. And we're going to break into our workshops and lunch. So just stay tuned. There's a few changes that we'll get to. But before we do that, if we could ask Henry Klink to come up, and he's got a thank you present for Mr. Germain.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. I'm going to get away from that. Merci.
Donc, nous allons maintenant prendre une
So we're now going to make a break. We're going to cut off the webcast until 1 p.m. Eastern Time to allow the young participants here in Montreal to work in breakout sessions so that they can discuss the place of Canada in the world. The questions will be posted live on the platform in a couple of minutes' time, the questions that the breakout groups have to discuss.
So what we're going to do is we're going to break out into 7 different groups. You've all been assigned a number. Now, before you go anywhere, this will give you a chance to discuss everything that we've seen so far this morning, our amazing presenters, and all those questions that you've had and the nice big lineups we've had, the questions that have come through online. You'll be able to discuss those in your groups. Youth ambassadors, there's some different instructions. We're going to go and you're going to pick up lunch and take it to your workshop group. You're going to eat together and you're going to discuss the questions that the youth ambassadors have with you. So lunch, and then you go to your rooms. We're going to do this in an orderly fashion, but before we do so, if you're following us online, we're going to end our stream shortly, and we'll see you back at 1:15 after lunch. For those of you here in Montreal, you're numbered 1 to 7. Group 1 is going to get up and go first. You're going to find your youth ambassador, Jaron and Sarah here. You're going to leave with them, and then we'll call on group 2, group 3, group 4, etc. So just group 1 right now, please.
Oh, it's all right.
Okay, group 2.